Inspector Arthur Neal was working with Sergeant Harold Reed, who was making inquiries about the brides in the Bath case. Together, they would visit the location where Margaret Lofty had died, and Reed spoke with the police constable who had been first on the scene.
She was on the floor, naked. I told him to cover her up. The husband. It wasn't right.
What did he look like?
Bit over 5'9", brown hair, little grey, full moustache. He was pumping her arms back and forth when I got there. Trying to revive her, I suppose. I took over before the doctor arrived.
I'm sure you did precisely as you were trained.
Bath water was still warm.
Lloyd had taken his wife to see the doctor the day before she died. Margaret had been suffering from a bad headache, apparently, though the doctor said Lloyd did all the talking.
The officers at Kentish Town Police Station made inquiries across the country as they tried to find John Lloyd and George Smith to see if they were indeed one and the same person, and to find out exactly what had happened to Alice Burnham and Margaret Lofty.
Lungs and stomach filled with soapy water, as you would expect. But heart normal, brain normal. Any news from Bristol?
They say without knowing which parish, sir, there's nothing they can do. Up to their eyes in work, apparently.
Well, aren't we all? Yes? Speaking. Uh-huh. Yes. Interesting. Of course, do. You have the number. Thank you. A week before she died, Margaret took out life insurance, £700. Now her husband's solicitor is trying to claim it. Margaret had lied to get the policy. She'd claimed she was of independent means. And she said she'd no intention of marrying anyone either. Lloyd was behind it all, of course.
He would first of all go to the doctor saying his wife was having fits or seizures. Once this had been placed with the doctor, then he would take out the increased life insurance, and then the wife would be drowned.
George Joseph Smith went to the solicitors to pick up the details from his latest new wife's will, which was going to result in him receiving money. He found that in the solicitor's office was Detective Inspector Neal, who had some very serious questions to ask him.
George Joseph Smith, born 11th of January 1872, Old Ford, Bethnal Green. No regular employment or fixed address. Sounds all right, Bounder.
We'll need to find out all we can about his finances.
You think there could be more, sir?
It was a system. Seduction, marriage, and then life insurance. And these sham visits to the doctor. I was convinced Smith had perfected it through practice.
Their inquiries found out that a month before Alice took out life insurance, Smith had bought an annuity from the same company. The cost of that annuity was £1,300. It's worth more than 100 times that today. That was a huge sum for a man with no obvious means. The pressing question for the police was what or who had been the source of that money. The answer to that question would help unravel the mystery of the brides in the Bath. Little did the police know just how bizarre and terrifying a life George Joseph Smith was leading. The investigation would demand all the efforts of one of the greatest forensic scientists of the era and lead to an incredible trial that would capture the attention of a public looking for anything to distract them from the worries of World War I. Thanks to a lot of detective work, the Metropolitan Police had worked out that the husband of the recently deceased Margaret Lofty and Alice Burnham was a man born George Joseph Smith. He had used many aliases and entered into numerous bigamous marriages before disappearing with the women's money. But he was finally in custody. But Inspector Arthur Neal believed there may be other victims as yet undiscovered. And he was right. In 1910, Bessie Mundy was alone. Her dreams of marriage and family unfulfilled. Now 33, those hopes looked forlorn. But the following summer, she met a man, a Londoner calling himself Henry Williams. He entranced her with tales of the capital and of his travels across the globe as a painting restorer. A whirlwind romance led to marriage. Her father, a bank manager, had left her £2,500 in his will. And this handsome amount was invested in a trust administered by her uncle. All the time Bessie was alive, the money was tied up in the trust. But should she die, the money would pass to the inheritor of her estate.
George chose to marry a succession of women in order to benefit from the financial property that came with them, and automatically their money on their death became his.
The ladies all stress his charm, his magnetic eyes. He said what an easy prey a woman was.
He must have had some kind of hypnotic way of dealing with women, probably only exceeded by his greed in getting their money afterwards.
For a man of commanding intensity to persuade a simple girl like Bessie to make him her sole beneficiary was easy enough. All he had to do now was get her to take a bath.
Well, in truth, I could have passed the case on to a junior. Would have been fine, I'm sure. The whole thing could have been a remarkable and tragic coincidence.
But Inspector Arthur Neal knew that two strikingly similar deaths involving the same man were unlikely to be a coincidence.